There's an endless that goes in my soul. I hear the music and those storms may come. I am holding on to the rock I pray. I love you. How can I keep from singing your praise? How can I ever say that? How amazing is your love? How can I keep from shouting your name? I know I am loved by the King, and it makes my heart want to sing. I will lift my eyes in the darkest night, for I know my Savior lives, and I will walk with you, knowing you'll see me through, and sing the songs you give. How can I keep from singing your praise? How can I ever say no? How amazing is your love. How can I keep from shouting your name? I know I am loved by the King, and it makes my heart want to sing. I can sing in the troubled times, sing when I win. I can sing when I lose myself and fall down again. I can sing because you pick me up, sing because you're sails and hear me roar when I can sing with my last breath, sing for I know that I'll sing with the angels and the saints around the. How can I keep from singing your praise? How can I ever say that? How amazing is your love? How can I keep from shouting your name? I know I'm loved by the King, and it makes my heart. I am loved by the King, and it makes my heart. I am loved by the King, and it makes my heart want to sing. Amen. Good morning. Welcome to River Hope. You may be seated. We're going to continue worship in song this morning after just a couple of announcements. First, if you didn't notice, although there's lots of work happening in the new building, they have also completed paving this parking lot. About 0.01% is the first commit, so it's good to see that we haven't neglected that. Continue to improve on the building we're in. Congratulations to Jared and Amy on the birth of their son. There was a picture up there. And I have no idea how long the wait. I don't know why that's such a important detail for many people. When you announce a birthday, you have to know how. Isn't that true? Like how big they are? No one else thinks that's important. Okay. Anyways, it's a boy. That's all we know. The height and weight or the gender? Yes, true. All right. Congratulations to Connor and Jen. They were baptized last week. Yeah, congratulations to you guys. They survived. Right on. We don't always announce every birthday. But, there are just some people in the church that are more special than others. So that it is Kale's birthday. Is that correct? Happy birthday, Kale. It's his birthday now. Good. And hope for the holidays. It's set the date of Saturday, November 28th. Pardon me. So if you're interested in helping, I guess those people organizing would love to have you help. There's a specific request in the bulletin. They do need additional help, though, so if you talk to Jolene, or Shireen, or Maureen, or Doris, you guys just want to wave if you're here? Okay, there's a few around. Yeah, your name has to end in E or Doris to participate. Okay, tickets are available today to purchase, or you can request them online. You want to tell your friends, you can sign up tickets today to offer to friends. And there's posters in the back. If you'd like to take some to put up to advertisers, you'd like to give to your friends. The tickets are only available until November 15th. So beware. Christmas shoeboxes, it's our next care group challenge. We just completed, I guess, the Scare for Hunger, and I think care group B won. So that probably explains. Care Group B was so focused on that challenge that you can't have all your energy in one challenge at one time. So, I know. We know. We've been fine. We'll be okay.
But yeah, as you can see, people are coming, even during the worship service. People just come to drop off boxes, Doug, so that's great. And then I think Pastor Jesse has an announcement he's going to come forward to.
Okay, just real quickly, we've got our junior high Camp Caroline trip that's coming up that a few of us are going on. And so first and most importantly, we just want you guys to be in prayer for us as we're going to be. Hopefully by next week, we're going to get all the names of the people that are going, so you can be praying for the leaders, you can be praying for the kids, because it's a really important trip and a very impactful trip on the kids, so we want you guys to be praying. But second of all, there's 8 of us going in total. And we're going to need an extra driver or an extra vehicle or something. So if you can donate that to us for that weekend, would be great. So that's going to be the 12th to the 15th. November 12th to 15th. That's the weekend we're gone. So if you want to just volunteer to drive us down and drive back and come pick us up, or you want to just volunteer us a vehicle so we have an extra something like that, just come talk to me and let me know so we can get down there, all right? Awesome.
Right on. Should be good. All right, and that is it for the announcements. If you'd like to stand, we'll continue to worship God in song for a few minutes here. And then just as you're wanting to prepare, just after we finish singing, there will be the offering and the kids will be dismissed. So if you're getting ready for that, we'll get ready for that. But let's just open with a word of prayer. Father, thank you for this time we have to be together as family or extended Christian family, God, and friends and guests, visitors, God. We just pray that each person here this morning will be blessed by your presence, not by me or anyone else being here, but specifically, God, your presence here through your Spirit, your Son. And that everything done here this morning, the fun we have, the joy we have, the learning we'll do, God, it will all be to honor you. In Jesus' name, amen. Oh God, you are my God, I will ever praise you. Oh God, you are my God, I will ever praise you. Oh God, you are my God, I will ever praise you. Oh God, you are my God, I will ever praise you. I will seek you in the morning. I will learn to walk in your ways. Step by step you'll lead me. I will follow you all my days. Oh God, you are my God. I will ever praise you. Oh God, you are my God, I will ever praise you. I will seek you in the morning. I will learn to walk in your ways. Step by step you'll lead me. I will follow you all my days. Today I choose follow you. Today I choose to give my yes to you. Today I choose to hear your voice and live. Today I choose to follow you. As for me and my house, we will serve you. As for me and my house, we will spend our lives on you. Today I choose to follow you.
Today I choose to give my yes to you. Today I choose to hear your voice and live. Today I choose to follow you. As for me in thy house, we will serve you. As for me in my house, we will spend our lives on you. Today I choose wonderful, wonderful Counselor, everlasting Father, eternal King, Lord of hosts, willingly we follow. Today I choose to follow you. Today I choose to give my yes to you. Today I choose to hear your voice and live. Today I choose to follow you. And I will seek you in the morning. And I will learn to walk in your ways. And step by step you'll lead me. And I will follow you all of my days. And I will seek you in the morning. And I will learn to walk in your ways. And step by step you'll lead me. And I will follow you all of my days. Oh God, you are my God. And I will ever praise you. Oh God, you are my God. And I will ever praise you.
Yeah.
Come sense where you've been. Come broken hearted and rescue me. Come find your mercy, oh sinner, come near. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your hands. Oh, wanderer, come, you're not too far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart, come as you are. There's hope for the hopeless, all those who stray, sit at the table, come taste the grace. There's rest for the weary, rest that endures. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't do. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your faces. Oh, wanderer, come home, you're not too far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart, come as you are. There's joy Sinner, be still. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your hands. Oh, wanderer from home, you're not too far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart, come as you are. Come as you are. Come as you are.
All right, as we close the set, and the ushers are preparing to come gather the offering. We're driving here this morning, listening to the worship songs in the van, and it got me thinking as we were preparing this set. Just I kind of had in my mind, I was just sort of thinking about worship and what it means and how it can be expressed, and how things are, I guess, limited here on earth in our own imperfections, and what it will be like when we finally see Jesus face to face. I'm sure it's going to be an awesome thing. I mean, the Bible says that we'll live with Him in eternity forever, worshiping Him forever. And so we were driving up this morning and just kind of sing along to the worship songs. We came across a song. We're not singing this next, but I Can Sing of Your Love Forever. You guys know that song, and so. And they were, if you know that song, and as many worship songs, I guess, called contemporary worship songs, they often repeat the same chorus, and sometimes repeat it over and over and over and over and over and over. So we're saying it would have been awesome to see if we were saying I Could Sing of Your Love Forever as a worship team this morning. If we just kept singing that over and over and over and over and over, I wonder at what point people would be like, okay, like it's been 10 minutes. Stop. I don't know what point that would be. It just kind of struck me as funny. And then I thought, but no, in reality, we are to be worshiping God continually, always. And then that doesn't mean that we're going to sing the same song over and over and over and over and over again. But I don't know if you ever thought yourself, we're supposed to come here worshiping Sunday mornings and feel comfortable worshiping Him in whatever manner we feel, not being worried about other people around us. And can you say that you truly do worship God that way? I don't know that I always can. And we're limited by our own, sinfulness or forgiven sin, I guess you could say. We're not perfect. One day we will, though, be perfect in Him. Amen. We'll worship Him in eternity forever. I don't know what that's going to be like. I don't know what that's going to look like. And I'm sure that as it should be on earth here, it won't be a matter of us looking around to see how others are worshiping around us. We'll just to focus on Him, Jesus, our Savior. I hope that when we come to worship God on Sundays like this in the church, that we can maybe just practice that. Maybe not perfectly, for sure not perfectly, but I encourage all of us, this is to myself too, to come and just when we worship Him, that we're really focused on just Him. Not the music, not the slides, not what someone else is doing beside us, how they're raising their hands or not, or singing or not, but just focus upon Him. One day we will do that perfectly. That's going to be awesome. Amen?
Only imagine what it will be like when I walk by your side. Only imagine what our eyes will see when your face is before me. glory, only imagine, only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will I feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or will I be still? Will I stand in your presence? To my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak it all? I can only imagine. Only imagine. Only imagine. When that day comes, when I find myself standing in the sun. Only imagine. When all I will do is forever worship you. Only imagine. Only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in all you be still? Will I stand in your presence? To my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak it all? I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in all you be still? Will I stand in your presence? To my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak it all? I can only imagine. Only imagine. Can only imagine. Only imagine. Only imagine. All I will do is forever worship you. Only imagine. Only imagine. Only imagine. Only imagine.
Yes, God, we can only imagine what that day will be like. Lord, until then, let us not waste any time here on earth to give you glory, God. Let us be focused on you, on your coming, on your eternal kingdom, but also not lose focus on our purpose here on earth, just to give you glory, bring glory to you, and lead others to you through your Son, Jesus Christ. And as the ushers take the offering now, would you just bless it, Lord? Would you grant wisdom to those in charge of using finances, God, and just encourage us as givers to give gloriously, God. In Jesus' name. Amen. And as the offering plate passes you, children, you're free to go to Sunday school.
So before I get going, I wanted to just mention last night we had the We Scare Hunger thing, which was a roaring success. And if I can just be a proud dad for just a second, Jesse organized it all and just did a great job. It was really well done. And, you know, a whole bunch of things happened that night that just made it even more stressful, and she just handled it really well. When they got to the church early, they were paving and said, "Oh no, no vehicles can come in." Well, we're coming in. That's gonna be happening, which is what I kindly told the man when I got here much later. He was okay by then. So he adjusted to the fact that we were going to be driving on it. And then the maps hadn't been marked yet with all the routes. Not only had they not been marked, they hadn't been printed yet. And the guy who was doing that wasn't here. So it was just a little bit of running late and behind, and then a couple of people had said some words that could be interpreted a little critically, and it was a bunch of, it was a pile on top of an 18-year-old's head, and she just handled it really well, and I still think it just went off really great. We got a ton of food for the food bank, so great job, everybody. And thank you all for coming. So now, as we have been going through the series about what people believe, and Jesse and I have been sort of focusing on what people outside of our religion believe, and he talked about some movies and stuff like that last week a little bit, sort of making sure that we know the story that goes behind that. And so I wanted to talk a little bit today about I don't know if you've ever encountered these people. I can remember a guy for sure that would always bring to me his latest conspiracy theory about how the Christ story is all made up. And there's an internet movie called Zeitgeist that you can watch on YouTube if you want. And it is just a pile of stuff that is showing that our religion is taken from pagan sources and isn't a unique story at all. And so I just want to talk about that this morning. I have a video for you to start off, so let me just roll that. Well, Mo will
The story
roll
of
that.
Horus is as follows. Horus was born on December 25th of the Virgin Isis Mary. His birth was accompanied by a star in the east, and upon his birth he was adored by 3 kings. At the age of 12, he was a prodigal child teacher. At the age of 30, he was baptized by a figure known as Anup, and thus began his ministry. Horus had 12 disciples he traveled about with, performing miracles such as healing the sick and walking on water. Horus was known by many gestural names such as the Truth, the Light, God's Anointed Son, the Good Shepherd, the Lamb of God, and many others. After being betrayed by Typhon, Horus was crucified, buried for 3 days, and thus resurrected. These attributes of Horus, whether original or not, seem to permeate many cultures of the world, for many other gods are found to have the same general mythological structure. Attis of Phrygia, born of the Virgin Nana on December 25th, crucified, placed in the tomb, and after 3 days was resurrected. Krishna of India, born of the Virgin Devaki, with a star in the east, signaling his coming. He performed miracles with his disciples, and upon his death was resurrected. Dionysius of Greece, born of a virgin on December 25th, was a traveling teacher who performed miracles such as turning water into wine. He was referred to as the King of Kings, God's only begotten Son, the Alpha and Omega, and many others. And upon his death, he was resurrected. Mithra of Persia, born of a virgin on December 25th, he had 12 disciples and performed miracles, and upon his death was buried for 3 days and thus resurrected. He was also referred to as the Truth, the Light, and many others. Interestingly, the sacred day of worship of Mithra was Sunday. The fact of the matter is, there are numerous saviors from different periods from all over the world which subscribe to these general characteristics. The question remains, why these attributes? Why the virgin birth on December 25th? Why dead for 3 days and the inevitable resurrection? Why 12 disciples or followers?
Whew. That's a load of stuff, hey? Good questions. So, why I'm talking about this stuff is not because I necessarily need to convince you, though if you're not a Christian, let me just say we think you should be. Let me lay my bias out on the table right now. But when you encounter people like my friend Paul, you need to be able to answer them with cogent, intelligent answers. And so that's why we're talking about some of this stuff. It's not because I think that you necessarily are going to be needing this personally, though I think if you watch Zeitgeist, it fills you full of a ton of stuff that you might want an answer for. And let me just say this as well, Zeitgeist lies. And if you're gonna lie and do it effectively, you wanna lie boldly, you wanna lie creatively, and you wanna lie quickly, and it does all of those things. And it does it well. Let me sort of start with the end, with that list. That's a great way to do it, okay? Just fire in this list of all these names that is really impressive, but goes by so fast you barely get a chance to see it. Well, a couple of things about the list, they talk about Horus and Attis and Krishna, and well, those are on the list again. They just spell them slightly different, so it looks more impressive. And they go through all of these things. So Krishna, they spell differently. Attis and Horus is Horus. Thor, as a Norse god, has no correlation whatsoever with the Christian story. Go ahead and read it. There's nothing there. Prometheus is a Greek titan. All right. Alcides of Thebes is Hercules. So go ahead and read that story and see if you can find some correlation. Good luck with that. Bedru of Japan, that's awesome. Fictional, made up, not a real person. No historical record of that person at all. With each of those, if you research them, there's just very little there. This list is borrowed intact. The maker of Zeitgeist, I think, is guilty of bad research more than anything. He's taken sources and looked at them completely uncritically. I'd rather believe that than that he was really this bad of a person that he would do this. But so this list is born intact from an 1875 book by Kelsey Graves. It's called The World's 16 Crucified Saviors. The book was dismissed by scholars at the time. Recently, it's been sort of resurrected, maybe because of Zeitgeist, and then dismissed again. And it's funny because on the list of crucified saviors that the Zeitgeist movie thing, he leaves off the last name on the list. So he only lists 15 that were crucified saviors. And the reason he leaves off the last list, because even he looked at it and went, wow, come on. The last name was Muhammad. Well, nobody is going to believe that he was crucified and resurrected, because he wasn't. So even he called, well, maybe not on that. So why do things like this even get passed around? Why is this even popular? And when I looked a little bit just on Facebook, you could see it was, people would spread it around. Oh, you have to watch this. It just shows so much. And that's what exactly happens. So if you're one of these people who just repost stuff on Facebook or on Reddit or BuzzFeed or any of these things, you should look with a critical eye. You should do a little research before you just pop it back out there, because so much of it is just garbage. I get the same email all the time about a Muslim cleric in a prison, and this whole story about how he was called out by one of the prisoners. It's not true. It didn't happen that way, and it certainly didn't happen in Calgary, which was the last one. You need to be critical about some of this stuff. And so here we have this thing. And so what Zeitgeist is trying to discredit is this story arc of Jesus, that he was born of a virgin, that 3 kings came, by the way, not kings, magi, and nowhere in the Bible does it say 3, I was just saying. And then, was baptized and started his ministry at 30, was crucified and resurrected. So that's the story arc that they're trying to discredit in this movie. and some other things we'll talk about in a little bit. And so what's interesting about this, and we talked about how we know Jesus was real, but there's one thing I didn't talk about in that message, that one way we know Jesus lived, and it's from his teachings. His teachings are unique and singular and rooted in Jewish tradition and culture. And we have those teachings. We have them. So to argue that Jesus didn't exist is really difficult when we have the teaching of this person. Call him whatever you want for the moment. We have that evidence that that person existed. There was a teacher who taught these things. We have good sources, both inside and outside the Bible, that show us that. And so it's really hard to argue that. And in fact, they don't even bother. They don't talk about his teachings. Why would they not talk about his teachings? Well, there's a really good reason. They generally ignore that, and that's because the church has generally ignored them. We've focused on orthodoxy, on the theology of Jesus. Not convinced? Let me show you the Apostles' Creed here. You're familiar with this, right? Right? I believe in God the Father, Almighty, creator of heaven and earth. I believe in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. What's missing? There's like a really, well, there's a whole bunch that comes after it, but there's a really important thing, is teachings are not in there at all. We just skipped it.
Yeah.
We skipped the most important part of Jesus. It's awesome that he's born of a virgin, that the Magi came, there was all of these things, but his teachings are what's singular about him. That's the part that we as a church need to embrace. But why do they ignore it? Because we ignore it. Not now, but historically maybe, and even now we tend to do a bit of that in the modern church. And it's not just the Apostles' Creed. You know, we focus on this orthodoxy, the right living, and ignore orthopraxy, which is, or right thinking, which is right living. But it's the Nicene Creed, the Chalcedonian Creed, the Athanasian Creed, all of them. Now, the argument is that the church was focused on some wrong thinking that was going on, and they wanted to set these creeds down so that people would have it. But the fact is, if you look at the historical church at the time, they weren't focused on that. They were just, it wasn't like people were living rightly. They weren't following the teachings of Jesus, and the church said, well, yeah, see, they're following all the teachings, but they have this thinking wrong, so we're just going to correct that with this creed. That's not what was happening. They're ignoring the part that's hard to get people to change and focus on something else. And we need to make sure as a body of believers that we're trying to live out what Jesus taught. It's time for the church to sort of repent of that wrong thinking that where we focus on. There's no parallel in history to Jesus' teaching. Not at all. And no one can argue that they're copied in any way. So let me just read to you from Matthew 12. So it says, at that time Jesus went through the grain fields on the Sabbath. His disciples were hungry, and he began to pick some heads of grain and eat them. When the Pharisees saw this, they said to him, look, your disciples are doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath. He answered, haven't you read what David did when he and his companions were hungry? He entered the house of God, and he and his companions ate the consecrated bread, which was not lawful for them to do, but only for the priest. Right? It was that bread that was set aside for the priest, and David said, my men are hungry, so they're going to eat it. Right? And it shows you the teachings of Jesus are rooted in Jewish culture and tradition. They're singular. And Jesus is saying here, David, even though the law is still current and that was against God's law, David had the Spirit of God and understood when the law applied and when it didn't, when it was okay to do that. And then he Goes on, I tell you that no one greater than the temple is here. If you had known what these words mean, and he's quoting the prophet Hosea, says, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. You would have not condemned the innocent, for the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. You know, Jesus taught in a singular way, and he really wanted to bring to the front and to the culture at the time, the heart of God is not the heart of sacrifice. The heart of God is a completely different thing. In fact, it says, Mark 2, and telling the same story, Jesus said, the Sabbath was made for people, not people for the Sabbath. Right? And that's what Jesus came to change. The sacrifices were not made, people were not made for the sacrifices, but the sacrifices to help people. This was, it's a total change of system. There's no parallel in history to Jesus' teachings. They're singular, and we ignore them at our own peril and leave ourselves open to this kind of zeitgeist argument that Jesus was a mythological figure. And so they use mythological figures to, and we'll get into some of the claims there, but they use this thing called parallelomania, and our culture loves this stuff. We point out parallels and just say, like, this is proof of something, right? So here's a good example. So both Lincoln and Kennedy were concerned with civil rights. Lincoln was elected president in 1860, Kennedy in 1960. Both were slain on a Friday and in the presence of their wives. Both were shot from behind and in the head. Their successors were both named Johnson. Andrew Johnson was born in 1808, Lyndon Johnson in 1908. John Wilkes Booth was born in 1839. Lee Harvey Oswald was born in 1939. Lincoln's secretary was named Kennedy, whereas Kennedy's secretary was named Lincoln. That's my favorite. The names Lincoln and Kennedy both contain 7 letters. Maybe that one is. Lincoln was shot in the Ford's Theater. Kennedy was shot in a Ford car. So parallels do exist. 2 to 6 are proof that sometimes parallels exist. They're just exaggerated in importance. I'm not even sure what the point of this is. Some are wildly exaggerated, like 9 and 10. Some are completely untrue, like 7 and 8. They're not true at all. John Wilkes Booth was born in 1838, but that doesn't make for a good parallel. It's a different year. And the Lincoln secretary was absolutely not named Kennedy. You know, they just, but they give you this list, and you know, the first few are accurate, and so you're like, oh, look at this. I'm not even sure, is the point they're the same person? Because they're not. Like, I'm not sure what we're supposed to draw a conclusion. There's a wild conspiracy in the world. I don't know. Anyway, it becomes an interesting sort of thing. And so then this movie talked about some people some mythological characters in history, and so we'll talk a little bit about each of them. So Jesus and Mithra being the same person. So Mithra, well, this is an interesting story. He's not crucified, no record of that at all. Not a virgin birth, in fact, born out of a rock. I guess a rock never had sex. Maybe I'm wrong about that one. In fact, there's just no parallels at all in the story. Like, there's just none. Because, you know, when you read the story of Mithra and you're like, but I certainly don't get Jesus out of this. Like, there's nothing there at all. Addis is a very interesting story. The mom is impregnated by a fruit which is full of justices as his father's semen, and that's how Addis came to be. And there are 2 stories about how Addis is killed. Brace yourself. One's pretty straightforward, and it's there's one source for this, that he was killed in a hunting accident when the guy who was supposed to protect him threw a spear at a boar and killed him. And so they say, you know, he was pierced by a spear and Jesus was pierced by nails. And I guess that's the parallel. He was not crucified, but the main story of his death is that he was going to be married and a justice wasn't invited to the wedding and got mad and came to the wedding and created this kerfuffle. And in the kerfuffle, everybody left and Addis's fiance died and he was really upset and brace yourself, he ripped off his own genitals and ran away and died under a pine tree. That's Jesus, right? That's close. Okay, wait, here's the part. Then a justice feels responsible, and he goes to Zeus and says, can you resurrect my son? And Zeus says, no, the fates have already decided what's going to happen to him, but this is what I will do for you. I'll make it so his body never rots, but his hair will keep growing, and my favorite part of it, his little finger will twitch forever. That's the story of Addis. So I know it's Dionysus, mentions Dionysus, was born multiple times, once out of Zeus's thigh. Yeah, not Jesus' story. Krishna's mother had 7 children before Krishna, not a virgin. Miraculous birth, there's lots of these have miraculous births, and somehow linguistically they link a miraculous birth to a virgin birth. Anyway, Krishna also dies in a hunting accident and then ascends to heaven. No resurrection. Not even though it's a Hindu thing, not even a reincarnation. It's just ascends to heaven. The movie leans really heavily on Horus. It talks about Horus extensively, and most of the info is taken from a man named Gerald Massey. He's been discredited many, many times. He studied the Egyptian carvings and came up with an interpretation that no one's ever been able to understand what he got, like where he got it. Everybody who studies them goes, what? But so the parallels do seem striking if you look at that. So 3 kings, 12 friends, crucified, baptism at 30, Mother Mary, virgin birth. Like it seems like, wow, there's all those things. The 3 kings are the stars known as the 3 kings that are on the painting. Now, they weren't called the 3 kings at the time, though. They were named the 3 kings after Jesus in honor of the 3 kings. And again, it wasn't kings, they were magi, and they weren't 3 of them necessarily. But 12 friends, well, Horus never seen with 12. He was dismembered, not crucified. Baptism at 30, there's absolutely no reference to baptism, and it's a Jewish custom. It's not a custom of the Egyptians at all. Oh, this was good. There's Isis, his mother, is often is referred to as Isis Mary, and so that's the drawn parallel, and that's absolutely true. But it's a linguistic trick because in Egyptian, Mary means beloved. So you would say people, they would say Isis Mary, beloved. But in Hebrew, Mary, which is really Miriam, means tear of bitterness. Beloved, tear of bitterness. They're not the same thing at all. He's using a linguistic trick. They also talk about in the movie Jesus and the number 12, and they list lots of 12s. 12 tribes, 12 sons of Jacob, 12 kings, 12 judges, 12 princes, 12 prophets, 12 disciples of Jesus. Wow! Okay, well, there are 12 tribes. They come out of the 12 sons of Jacob. So there's a direct relationship there. Jesus' 12 disciples, he did intentionally to reflect on the 12 tribes. It was another declaration that the times have changed, that we're doing a new thing. 12 judges, there are not 12 judges, read them. 12 kings, there are way more than 12 kings. 12 princes don't even know what he's talking about. 12 prophets, well, there are 12 minor prophets, but that's how we've separated the book. We just, because there are prophets who wrote more, we call them the major prophets and sort of separate those three out, but there are 15 prophets. There aren't 12. It's just it goes on, and then he switches his focus a little bit, and he said, well, if that's not enough, all of this stuff about Jesus, I'm going to show you the whole Jewish religion is stolen. And then he talks about Sargon. And so we have a little clip of what he shows a part of this whole thing.
This is birth. It is said that he was placed in a reed basket and set adrift in a river in order to avoid infanticide. He was later rescued by a daughter of royalty and raised by her as a prince. This baby in a basket story was lifted directly from the myth of Sargon of Akkad of around 2250 BC. Sargon was born, placed in a reed basket in order to avoid infanticide, and set adrift in a river. He was in turn rescued and raised by Aki, a royal midwife. Furthermore, Moses is known as the lawgiver, the giver of the Ten Commandments, the Mosaic Law. However, the idea of the law being passed from God to a prophet up on a mountain is also a very old motif. Moses is just another lawgiver in a long line of lawgivers in mythological history. In India, Manu was the great lawgiver. In Crete, Minos ascended Mount Dicta, where Zeus gave him the sacred laws. While in Egypt, there was Meses, who carried stone tablets, and upon them the laws of God were written. Manu, Minos, Meses, Moses. And as far as the Ten Commandments, they are taken outright from spell 125 in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. When the Book of the Dead phrased, "I have not stolen," became "Thou shalt not steal." "I have not killed," became "Thou shalt not kill." "I have not told lies," became "Thou shalt not bear false witness," and so forth. In fact, the Egyptian religion is likely the primary foundational basis for the Judeo-Christian theology.
It's impressive, right? It's not, if you haven't got the trend already. So Moses and Sargon, we'll start there. The river and the basket are true. It's the only part that's true. Sargon's mother was royalty, not true of Moses. And she put Sargon in a basket down the river as an offering to the gods. Sargon was rescued by a gardener and raised. So just a completely different sort of story out of all of that. The rest of it is just is ridiculous. And then he makes this shift to Moses and lawgivers, sort of implies that Sargon is a lawgiver, but there's no record of that at all. Sargon's not a lawgiver at all. So he just makes this switch. And then he makes this word play, Manu, Minos, Meses, Moses. That's really cool. Just like Joshua, Joan of Arc, and George Washington are all military leaders, but not the same person. Right? Manu got the legal code 200 years before Jesus. So if there's any borrowing there, it's the other way around. It's not one and the other. And he sort of implies, right, that they all climbed a mountain and were given these, these laws by God and then brought them down. Manu, Minos, he got the code from inside a cave, and the laws aren't even close to the same. Meses doesn't exist, that's made up. The Book of the Dead does have a code of things, and he says, there commandments are taken wholesale from it, and he gives 3 examples, right? If you remember what they were? Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, and thou shalt not lie. So, give me a break. How impressive is that? Any code of conduct in the world that didn't include don't kill people, don't steal, and don't lie would be of note. Of course those are there. That's obvious that those are going to be there. You know, if you're making a case, wouldn't you list the 3 most impressive things? Well, let's just flip to Exodus 20 for a second. And we'll, what about the first commandment? You shall have no other gods before me, in verse 3. No, that's not in there. Doesn't exist in there. How about you shall not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven above or on the earth below or on the waters below? No idols. The Egyptians were all about idols. They totally didn't follow that. How about you don't take the name of the Lord in vain? No, that's not in there. Keep the Sabbath day holy. Nope. They're not doing very well at listing at this. The 3 they do list are not impressive in any way. This is this movie and so many of these conspiracy theories about things, just they want to trick you and to fool you, and they use linguistic tricks and they use lists, that they lie boldly, creatively, and above all quickly and try and fool you. Or they make these parallels that even if there is a parallel, it doesn't have the same meaning that it would have. Were there lawgivers previously in history? Oh, yeah. Were the laws the same? No. Did it happen the same way? No. It was completely different. You know, people claiming that they have spoken to God isn't unique either. It happens today. They're on the corner holding up signs usually. That's not impressive, and it's not a sign of anything. But we need to be rooted so solidly in the Bible and do our research so that when people present this stuff to us, we can have an answer. You know, my friend Paul, who I mentioned before, his favorite one was that the whole New Testament was written by Paul, and Paul's greatest trick was putting Jesus in Bethlehem. Well, we have just tons of evidence outside of the Bible that it wasn't written by Paul. We have, never mind the stylistic differences, we know that a third of the New Testament was written by Paul, but the rest of it is so drastically different and comes from different times. It wasn't written by Paul. Some of it comes from after Paul. We just know that. So, you know, but you have to be able to answer those questions, be ready for those answers. Our focus, though, more importantly, we need to shift to focusing on the teachings of Jesus, the importance of those teachings, and what he saw: love over law, relationship over ritual. Right? Let me just remind you what it said in Matthew 12:7. It said, "If you would know what these words mean, I desire mercy, not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the innocent." Mercy, not sacrifice. It's so easy for us to get on the side of law and to be critical of other people. That is not the heart of God. The heart of God is forgiveness and grace and mercy. That is the heart. When David stole the forbidden bread, God did not condemn him because David understood the heart of God was that my men survive, even though Saul is trying to kill us. Mercy and grace is the heart of God. There are things that are important for us to remember, but this is the essence of Jesus' teachings, and we need to remember that as we go forward. And so when you encounter any of these conspiracy theories, you just look at them critically and take the time to evaluate them. Don't let someone bowl you over with these parallels and lists and garbage. And if they mention he didn't exist, or bedroom of Japan, also not a thing. You know, there's so many of these things that they just they kind of overwhelm you with stuff. And it sounds impressive to use the same letter sound over and over again, but it's not impressive. It doesn't mean anything, right? And you throw that Kennedy Lincoln list back at them and let them ponder that for a while if they want a conspiracy, though I'm not sure again what the conspiracy would be. Jesus existed. He taught in a singular way, a singular truth. It's beyond anything any other teacher in history has taught. It's novel and new. It's still fresh today. We still don't live by it. We still should. There we go. Bow your heads with me. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you so much for Jesus. We thank you for sending your Son that we might learn the heart of God from him. We just ask you as we spend time in the world, that when we encounter things that are truly false, that we have the answers or are able to do the research and find the answers, that we can seek out truth and answer lies with that truth, Lord. We thank you so much. We know that Jesus lived. We know that he taught, and he taught amazing things. And we just ask you to guide us in that. We pray this in your Son's name. Amen.
Would you stand as we close our service? Just sing one last song, and then we're formally dismissed. And just thinking, Maureen, Sherry, Eileen.
Jesse.
Yeah, that's also Jesse.
Oh, to Jesus I surrender, all to him I freely give. I will ever love and trust him, in his presence daily live. I surrender all. I surrender all to thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender all to Jesus. I surrender, humbly at his feet I bow. Worldly pleasures all forsaken, take me, Jesus, take me now. I surrender all. I surrender all to thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender all. Oh, to Jesus I surrender, make me Savior, holy thine. Let me feel the Holy Spirit, truly know that thou art mine. I surrender all. I surrender all to thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender all.
Let go in the grace of God.